While helping my sister-in-law Megan hang her laundry, I found a folded note in her pocket. The handwriting was my husband's, the usual spot. I mimicked his script, wrote a different note, and slipped it back into the pocket. In the middle of the night, a scream echoed from Megan's room. When the door opened, our entire family froze in shock. My name is Grace Hayes. I was born into wealth, raised amidst the sharp calculations of my father's corporate world. But ever since my parents died in a car crash 3 years ago, leaving me alone with a vast fortune, I never imagined my life would spiral into such a dark abyss right in the house I called home. That Saturday afternoon, the sky over Greenwich, Connecticut, was bruised and heavy, dark clouds churning and a promise of a torrential downpour. Inside the sprawling estate on the waterfront, a priceless wedding gift from my parents. The air was just as thick, suffocatingly tense. Though I was the true owner of this house, I had swallowed my pride to preserve my husband's ego and please his parents. Welcoming them to live with us, I fulfilled my duties as a devoted daughter-in-law, providing for them without complaint. Yet my mother-in-law, Susan, seemed to have conveniently forgotten who funded her lavish lifestyle. She sat with her legs crossed on the expensive Italian leather sofa, loudly snapping her gum, occasionally glancing at me as I folded laundry in the corner. Grace, pick up the pace. It's about to pour, and Michael and Megan's things are still on the line upstairs. Her shrill voice, laced with command, cut through the quiet. If they get soaked, what are they going to wear? To the party tonight? Yes, Susan, I replied softly, my hands moving swiftly over a stack of iron dress shirts. After 5 years of marriage, I was accustomed to her tone. She always believed I was lucky to have married her son, Michael. Even though anyone could see their family had hit the jackpot by marrying into mine. But because I loved Michael, and because I wanted to honor the peaceful family life my parents had cherished, I chose silence. I believed in the vows I took. A little compromise to keep the peace felt like a small price to pay. I walked up to the rooftop terrace. The wind was picking up, whipping dust into the air. The expensive clothes belonging to Michael and my sister-in-law, Megan, flapped violently on the line. Megan was the wife of David, Michael's older brother. The two brothers were night and day. Where Michael was slick and charming, a corporate executive thanks to my family's influence, David was a quiet, kind-hearted man who drove a long-haul truck. Megan, on the other hand, did nothing but live in my mansion, yet always put on airs, dressing in the latest fashions. Her spending money came mostly from her husband or by bleeding our family dry. I quickly gathered the clothes into a basket. As I took down Megan's long beige cashmere coat, I felt a lump in the pocket. It was the latest design from a famous brand worth no less than $2,000. Megan had just bragged about buying it last week with David's bonus. Not wanting to damage the coat's shape in the wash, I reached inside to check for any forgotten items. My fingers brushed against a small piece of paper neatly folded into a square. Thinking it was a receipt she'd Forgotten, I planned to leave it on her vanity. But when I unfolded it, the handwritten words hit me like a physical blow. The usual spot, Tuesday 10 o'clock p.m. The slanted, flowing script with the flourish on the T was unmistakable. I would recognize it anywhere. It was Michael's handwriting. I stood frozen. The wind slapping my face, but the chill was nothing compared to the ice spreading through my chest. A note from my husband, found in my sister-in-law's coat. A rendezvous at the usual spot. My head spun, but the sharp instincts of a woman seasoned in the business world kicked in, steadying me almost instantly. I didn't scream. I didn't crumple the paper. I clutched it in my palm, my eyes staring into the turbulent sky. Connecting the dots, a devastating picture began to form. Every Tuesday, Michael came home late, blaming client dinners or urgent meetings with international partners. Every Tuesday, Megan was conveniently out for a late-night restorative yoga class. David, her husband, was off and on cross-country trips, gone for days. Sometimes a week at a time. The timing was too perfect, the location too familiar. It was clear that behind my back, behind David's back, the two people we trusted most were engaged in a despicable affair. They weren't just betraying us emotionally. There had to be more to it. Michael was an executive vice president at my family's company. And while Megan didn't work, she had an unsettling amount of control over David's financial documents. The union of these two ambitious, morally bankrupt people was certainly about more than just lust. A clap of thunder broke my train of thought as the first heavy drops of rain began to fall. Startled, I shoved the note into my own pocket and continued gathering the clothes as if nothing had happened. Downstairs, Megan was back from her nail appointment, laughing with Susan on the sofa. She wore a ridiculously short skirt, showing off her long legs and freshly painted red nails. "Oh, Grace, you got the clothes? Make sure you hang my cashmere coat carefully. It's designer. Can't have it getting wrinkled." Her tone was condescending, her eyes glued to her phone. I looked at her, suppressing the wave of disgust rising in my throat and forced a faint smile. "Of course, Megan. A coat that beautiful needs to be handled with care. It would be a shame to waste the buyer's money." My words were laced with insinuation, but neither Megan nor Susan, in their blissful ignorance, caught the double meaning. Just then, Michael came downstairs, adjusting his tie. He glanced at me as if I were a piece of furniture before turning to Megan. "Megan, did you hear from David today? They're saying that hurricane is hitting the coast pretty hard. Hope the roads are okay." The way he feigned concern for his brother was nauseating. I watched his eyes as he looked at her, a quick furtive glance filled with meaning, which Megan returned with a subtle, flirtatious flutter of her eyelashes. Before, I would have seen it as simple family affection. Now, every gesture was a needle in my heart. He said he'll probably be back tomorrow. "It's too dangerous to drive in this storm," Megan replied, her voice tinged with an inappropriate pouty tone. I clenched my hand in my pocket, feeling the sharp corner of the note. Fine. You want to play games behind my back? You think I'm just a doll in a glass case? Nodding and obeying. I'll show you just how expensive betrayal can be. I'm going to go lie down. I have a bit of a headache, I announced. Once in my room, I locked the door, sat at my desk, and smoothed out the note. Tuesday. Today was Saturday. 3 more days until their sorted meeting, but I couldn't wait that long. My patience had evaporated the moment I saw my husband's handwriting in another woman's pocket. I looked out the window as the rain began to lash against the glass. A bold plan formed in my mind. If they wanted a rendezvous, I would give them one, not on Tuesday, but tonight. A dark and stormy night. Perfect for secrets and for washing away the filth in this house. From my desk drawer, I pulled out a pad of sticky notes, identical to the ones Michael used. I'd taken a calligraphy class in college and had a knack for mimicking handwriting, a talent I rarely used. But tonight, it would be my sharpest weapon. Taking a deep breath to steady my hand, I began to write, replicating Michael's script perfectly. The broad loop of the M, the slight rightward slant, it was flawless. David's not coming home tonight. 6 short words, a forged message, but powerful enough to ignite the greed and lust of 2 traitors. If Megan found this note, she would think it was a signal from Michael that the coast was clear. And tonight, when the house was asleep and the storm muffled every sound, their true natures would be revealed. I compared my forgery to the original note. It was a 99% match. A cold smile touched my lips. In this play, I was the director, and they were merely my pathetic puppets. The storm outside intensified, the wind howling through the eaves like a tormented spirit. I sat at my vanity, staring at my reflection. It was the same Grace, with the same large eyes and straight nose, but my expression was transformed. The usual look of quiet endurance was gone, replaced by a cold, resolute determination. I carefully folded the forged note, mimicking the exact creases of the original. The next step was to switch it back into Megan's coat without anyone noticing. I picked up her cashmere coat, pretending to give it a final check before hanging it in her closet. Megan's bedroom door was slightly ajar, and I could hear the shower running. She was occupied. This was my chance. My heart beat with a strange calm as I slipped into her room. I wasn't nervous, only focused. I quickly placed the fake note in the pocket where I'd found the real one and hung the coat neatly in her closet. Then I returned to my room, went into the bathroom, tore Michael's real note into tiny pieces, and flushed them down the toilet. The first piece of evidence was destroyed, replaced by a deadly trap of my own making. But my plan wasn't complete. For the curtain to fall perfectly tonight, I needed a key witness. A witness with enough emotional weight, enough pain, and enough fury to shatter this family's facade. That person could only be David. I found David's number on my phone. He was on His way back from a haul up in Vermont. Not expected until tomorrow morning. But with a hurricane bearing down on the coast, a good reason could bring him home sooner. David, for all his rough exterior, loved his wife and was a devoted family man. That weakness would be the lever for my plan. I drafted a text, choosing my words carefully to sound like a genuinely concerned sister-in-law. Hey, David, the news is saying the storm's getting really bad. Roads are starting to flood. Please be careful out there. Mom is so worried about you. Maybe try to get home a little early if you can. Better to be safe here than stuck on the road. We'll have dinner waiting. I didn't mention Megan or any suspicions. I simply appealed to his sense of responsibility and his love for his mother. A message like that would surely make him push to get home sooner, both to beat the storm and to put his family's minds at ease. The read receipt appeared almost instantly. 3 minutes later, he replied. Thanks, Grace. Appreciate it. Worried about the cargo, too. I'm putting the pedal down. Should be there around 2 or 3 a.m. Don't tell Mom. Don't want her staying up. A smile, cold and sharp, formed on my face. Perfect. 2 a.m. By then, Michael and Megan would have taken the bait. Dinner that evening was a tense affair, at least for me. Susan chattered on about a neighbor winning the lottery and the fluctuating stock market. Michael ate with his eyes glued to his phone, grunting noncommittally. Megan, however, was unusually animated, her cheeks flushed, stealing glances at Michael. She must have found the note. This storm is perfect for a good night's sleep, Megan said, stretching languidly as she finished her meal. I'm heading up, Mom. My back is killing me after that nail appointment. Go on, dear. And Michael, you get some rest, too. Get off that phone. Susan waved them off. Michael looked up, shot a quick glance at Megan, then turned to me. You've got the cleanup, right? I have to finish up some work emails. Of course, I replied, my voice light. Watching the two traitors disappear up the stairs, I felt a surge of contempt. They weren't just having an affair. They were plotting to seize my assets. I knew Megan was holding important documents for David, including the deed to their family's vacation property upstate, a property my parents had gifted them the down payment for. Somehow, Michael had convinced me to co-sign on a joint safe deposit box, and Megan held the second key. Tonight, they would undoubtedly discuss their plans, or worse, sign something illicitly. I cleared the dishes with a steady hand, my composure more frightening than any outburst of rage. Upstairs, I changed into a modest but elegant silk nightgown and brushed out my long dark hair. I didn't sleep. I sat in an armchair, the lights off, watching the faint glow of street lights filter through the curtains. I listened to every sound in the large house. Susan's steady snoring from the ground floor, the relentless drumming of the rain, and then around midnight, the soft click of a door opening on the second floor. The sound of stealthy footsteps, barely audible, moved toward Megan's room. My bedroom was at the far end of the hall, and hers was at the other, but in my heightened state, nothing escaped me. The door to Megan's room closed, and a dreadful silence fell. I knew what filth was unfolding behind that door, but I wasn't impatient. I needed to wait for the main act. I glanced at the clock. 1 a.m. David would be here in an hour. Time crawled by, mocking me. I sat motionless, a statue carved from grief and fury, my mind replaying the last 5 years. Michael's loving words, Megan's pretense of sisterly friendship, all lies. My trust had been trampled, but sorrow wouldn't solve anything. Tonight, they would learn the consequences of crossing the daughter of Hayes Legacy Corp., his founder. I didn't just want a divorce. I wanted them ruined, penniless, and utterly humiliated. At 1:45 a.m., I heard the distant rumble of a truck engine, followed by the familiar hiss of air brakes in front of the estate. David was back, 15 minutes early. Excellent. I heard the clank of the gate opening and David's heavy but hurried footsteps on the driveway. He was trying to be quiet, true to his gentle nature. He had no idea his quiet world was about to be incinerated. I stood up, smoothed my nightgown, and moved out of my room, hiding in the shadows of the mezzanine landing that overlooked the second-floor hallway. The show was about to begin. The storm still raged outside, flashes of lightning occasionally illuminating the dark corners of the mansion. I held my breath in the darkness, watching every movement below. David, his clothes soaked from the rain and stained with road grime, was quietly climbing the stairs. His face was weary, but his eyes held the gentle joy of a man happy to be home with his wife. In his hand, he carried a small bag of peaches, Megan's favorite fruit. A pang of pity shot through me, but it vanished as quickly as it came. This pain was necessary for his awakening. David reached the door to their bedroom. It was unlocked. Of course, it was. Megan thought he was a stay-at-home away, and with only family in the house, why would she bother to lock it? It made Michael's comings and goings all the easier. David placed his hand on the doorknob and turned it gently. The door swung open. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3. Ah! Megan's piercing scream tore through the night, louder than the clap of thunder that followed. Immediately after, David's voice erupted, a guttural roar of a wounded animal. You filthy bastards! What the hell are you doing? The sound of crashing furniture, shattering glass, and the sickening thud of flesh hitting flesh rocked the house. I waited a few more seconds for the chaos to peak. The hallway lights flickered on. Susan scrambled up from the ground floor, shouting, "What is it? What's happening? Oh my God!" Only then did I step out of the shadows, my face a mask of sleepy confusion and alarm, and run toward Megan's room. The scene before me was more spectacular than I could have imagined. In the bedroom, under the soft glow of a bedside lamp, Megan was huddled in a corner wearing nothing but a scandalous red lingerie set, clutching a blanket to her body, her face drained of all color. Michael, my husband, was shirtless and disheveled, held in a chokehold by David, who was relentlessly punching him in the face. Michael's face was already swelling, blood streaming from his nose. On a small table nearby lay a scattered pile of A4 papers. I glanced at them and immediately recognized the deed to David's property and the stock transfer certificates in my name. Beside them was an open bottle of wine and 2 half-empty glasses. How romantic. How disgusting. I'll kill you. I'll kill you, you son of a. David roared, his fists raining down on Michael like a divine punishment. Michael, weaker and caught off guard, could only shield his head, stammering, "David, listen to me. It's not what you think, not what I think? Am I blind? I work my ass off on the road to support you, to support my wife, and this is what you do behind my back." David, in a fit of rage, grabbed a lamp and swung it at Michael. Michael dodged and the lamp smashed against the wall, exploding into pieces. "Oh my God, David, you'll kill him. Stop!" Susan cried, rushing in and wrapping her arms around David's waist, begging and sobbing. "Son, please, whatever it is, we can talk about it. You'll kill him." David struggled, pushing his mother away, but the fight was draining out of him, replaced by overwhelming grief. He staggered back, breathing heavily, his bloodshot eyes fixed on the 2 traitors. I stood in the doorway, arms crossed, my cold gaze sweeping over each of their faces. When Michael saw me, a flash of pure terror crossed his features, quickly replaced by a desperate, pleading look. Did he really think I was still the same naive wife he could manipulate? "What is going on here?" I asked, my voice calm, but carrying an authority that silenced the room. Megan looked up, her face a mess of tears and snot, and glanced between David and me. "David, I'm innocent," she wailed. "It was Michael. He was drunk. He forced me." "Shut your mouth!" Michael bellowed, turning and slapping Megan hard across the face. You're the one who sent me the note. Now you're blaming me. Enough! I shouted, striding into the room. I walked straight to the table and picked up the papers. Property deeds, stock transfer certificates. You two weren't just having an affair. You were planning to openly rob us. Seeing the papers, Susan rushed over and snatched them from my hands, hiding them behind her back. Robbery? What robbery? This is a family matter. Grace, don't you dare make a scene. It's shameful. Men will be men. It's normal. Why are you making such a big deal? I looked at her, feeling sick. Even now she was defending her degenerate son, spewing her archaic, rotten philosophy to cover up his crimes. Men will be men. I laughed, a bitter, sharp sound, my eyes like daggers locked onto hers. Really, Susan? So you would accept your daughter-in-law sleeping with her brother-in-law in your own house while they plot to steal land and money from your other son? Is David an adopted child or did you just never care about him? My words hit her like a slap. She froze, speechless. Hearing me, David's anguish intensified. He turned to his mother, his eyes filled with a profound, bottomless pain. You knew, didn't you? You knew about this all along, and you covered for them. I didn't know anything. Susan stammered, avoiding his gaze. Don't listen to your wife's lies. No one needs to lie. I cut in. The truth is right here. Michael, Megan, you're both excellent actors, but unfortunately, the show ended too soon. Michael scrambled to his feet, wiping blood from his nose. He looked at me with pure hatred. It was you. You wrote that note. You set me up. He figured it out. Smart, but too late. What note? I feigned ignorance. What are you talking about? You get caught cheating and now you're trying to frame your wife. How pathetic can you get? It was your handwriting. I know you can forge my signature. Michael screamed, lunging toward me, but David intercepted him, landing another punch in his stomach that doubled him over, coughing. You dare touch your wife? David growled. Seeing the tables turn, Megan crawled on her knees and clung to David's legs, sobbing hysterically. David, forgive me. I was tricked. Michael tricked me. He told me you agreed to transfer the property to him for a business deal. He said you asked him to take care of me. I was a fool. I believed him. The lie was so blatant, so idiotic, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Megan, do you think David is a 3-year-old? Take care of you by getting naked in bed with you. The tension in the room was a wire stretched to its breaking point. Outside, the storm still howled, but the tempest inside was far more violent. This family, this facade of respectability they were so proud of, had officially shattered tonight. I glanced at the clock. 3 a.m. Time to end Act 1 and begin Act 2. The public punishment. Everyone wants to talk, right? Fine, I commanded, my voice like steel. Downstairs to the living room. I have something to show you all. I turned and walked away, not looking back at the wreckage I was leaving behind. I knew they would follow. The power was now in my hands. The grand living room, illuminated by a magnificent crystal chandelier, felt as somber as a funeral parlor. Susan sat huddled on an armchair, her face ashen, still clutching the documents like a talisman. Michael sat opposite her, nursing his swollen nose, his shifty eyes darting around for an escape. Megan, wrapped in a thin blanket, wept quietly on the floor, occasionally glancing at David, who sat stiffly in a lone chair, his hands clenched so tightly his knuckles were white. I stood in the center of the room, my back straight, my head held high. I did not sit. My role now was that of the judge, not an equal to be seated with this filth. Michael, I began, my voice breaking the oppressive silence. You just accused me of setting you up with a fake note, correct? He looked up, his voice still shaky, but trying to sound defiant. That's right. You faked the note saying David wasn't coming home. You're a vicious, scheming woman. Scheming? I laughed, the sound echoing in the cavernous room. And what do you call sleeping with your brother's wife? What do you call plotting to steal your brother's property and my inheritance? Honesty. It was a mistake, Michael mumbled. A moment of weakness. A moment of weakness that came with pre-drafted transfer contracts and a detailed plan to liquidate assets. I pointed to the papers in his mother's hands. Susan flinched and tried to hide them further. I just asked Michael to look these over for when I divide things between the boys later. Stop lying, Mom. David suddenly roared, his voice with pain. How long are you going to deceive me? That property was left to me by Dad. You held the deed, and now you give it to him to sign away. What am I to you? Is he your only son, and I'm just the hired help? Susan fell silent, her head bowed in shame. Her favoritism had always been obvious, but never had it been so nakedly cruel. I walked over to the large smart TV mounted on the wall. Michael says I'm making false accusations. So, let me show you all something. After you see this, you can tell me who the real schemer is. I took out my phone and wirelessly connected it to the screen. A video which I had secretly obtained from the VIP security cameras of an upscale cafe in Manhattan began to play. The cafe was owned by a close friend of mine who might asked for help when my suspicions first started. On the 65-inch screen, Michael and Megan appeared in crystal clear 4K. They were in a secluded corner, but the high-quality camera and directional microphone captured everything. Michael was holding Megan's hand, caressing it. His voice, filtered of background noise, was chillingly clear. Don't worry, babe. Once I get Grace's corporate seal and transfer her shares to the shell company, we'll have everything. I'll kick her to the curb. As for David, I'll trick him into signing the deed to the upstate property and we'll use that money to open your spa. Megan giggled, leaning her head on his shoulder. You promise? I am so sick of him. The man smells like diesel and roadkill, and he's useless in bed. I just want to go to Europe with you. We will as soon as this is done, Michael purred. I'm sick of that high and mighty princess myself. Her family's money will be my money soon enough. The video ended, plunging the room into a dead, suffocating silence. David stared at the blank screen, then at Megan. The rage in his eyes faded, replaced by a hollow emptiness, the look of a man whose entire world had just collapsed. The wife he loved, the brother he trusted, had mocked him with the cruelest words imaginable, useless in bed, tricked him into signing. Each word was a knife twisting in his gut. You monsters! David whispered, tears streaming down his weathered face. He didn't have the strength to hit them anymore. This pain was beyond what any physical blow could express. Megan was ashen, trembling uncontrollably, unable to form a single word. The evidence was irrefutable. Michael sat frozen like a statue. He knew it was over. I turned off the TV and faced them all. So, does anyone still think I'm making false accusations? Is this still just a moment of weakness? No one dared to answer. All right, then. I continued, my voice like ice. I am filing for divorce. And not just a divorce. I am suing Michael Hayes for fraud, attempted theft of assets, and adultery. You should prepare yourself for prison. You wouldn't dare. Susan shrieked, jumping to her feet and pointing a finger at me. If you do that, I'll ruin you. Ruin me? How? I cut her off, my sharp gaze making her flinch. By hiring thugs? By spreading rumors that I'm a bad daughter-in-law? Go ahead. I have enough evidence to ensure that when the dust settles, you're the ones left with nothing but shame and disgrace. I turned my attention to Michael. And as for you, first thing tomorrow morning, clear out your desk. I'll be exercising my power as majority shareholder to have you terminated immediately. You do well to remember how you got that position in the first place. I can raise you up and I can crush you. Michael stared at me. His eyes burning with a mixture of hatred and desperation. He knew I meant every word. He gritted his teeth. Don't push me too far. If I go down, I'm taking you with me. What do you think will happen to the company's stock when this scandal gets out? You think your dead father would be proud? My father despised two things above all else: leeches and traitors. I shot back. If he knew, he would support me in kicking a parasite like you out of his company to protect his life's work. Finally, I turned to David. David, I'm so sorry you had to see this, but it's better to feel a sharp pain once than a dull ache for the rest of your life. This woman is not worthy of you. David simply nodded, his head bowed as he stared at his callous hands. I walked toward the stairs. I couldn't stand to be in that house another second. I would check into a hotel tonight. The legal battle was just beginning, and I needed a clear head to fight it. Outside, the rain had softened to a drizzle, but in my heart, the storm had passed. A phoenix can only be reborn from ashes, and I, Grace Hayes, would begin my rebirth tonight. After my declaration in front of Michael's family, I walked upstairs with firm, deliberate steps. But the truth was, once I closed my bedroom door, my heart began to race, not from fear, but from the liberating feeling of casting off a burden I had carried for years. This room, once filled with my hopes for a happy home, was now just the empty shell of a fraudulent marriage. I pulled a large suitcase from the closet and began to pack. I only took what was truly mine: clothes I had bought with my own salary, my work laptop, and most importantly, my personal documents. I also had the corporate seal and several confidential files I had discreetly copied from Michael's computer when he was careless. The gifts he had given me, the jewelry Susan had presented on our wedding day, I left it all on the vanity. I would walk away with my head held high, unburdened by anything from this family. Crash! The door flew open and Michael stormed in. He had thrown on a t-shirt, but his face was still swollen, his eyes bloodshot and furious. He lunged forward, grabbed the suitcase I was packing, and hurled it to the floor. Where do you think you're going? You think you can just walk out of here that easily? He roared, his breath reeking of wine. Don't forget, we're married. Assets acquired during the marriage are shared property. As long as the court hasn't ruled, my parents and I have every right to be here. If you leave, you forfeit your claim. I calmly bent down, picked up the suitcase, dusted it off, and looked him straight in the eye. Don't you dare try to lecture me on the law. This house was a gift to me from my parents before we were married. The deed is in my name alone. I let your family stay here out of kindness, a kindness you spat on. So consider tonight my final act of charity. Tomorrow my lawyer will serve you with an eviction notice. Michael sneered, his face a twisted mask. Eviction? Who do you think you are? Don't forget I control 30% of the company's proxy votes. If I sell those shares on the open market or team up with a competitor, your position as chairwoman will be a lot less stable. The empire your father built will come crumbling down. He was threatening me with my father's legacy, what he thought was my only weakness. He was wrong. I stepped closer to him, my voice dropping to a low, icy whisper. Go ahead, try to sell them. Who would buy shares from a man under investigation for embezzlement and fraud? By tomorrow morning, a court order will have frozen all your assets. Did you really think I wasn't prepared? You're more naive than I thought, Michael. He froze. He hadn't expected me to be so many steps ahead. You've been planning this. For how long? He stammered, his bravado vanishing. Since the day I saw you secretly transferring company funds into Megan's personal account. I lied. In truth, I had only recently gathered concrete evidence. But I needed him completely unnerved. Did you think I was a fool? I am my father's daughter. Business is in my blood. You're just an ambitious nobody with no vision. Enraged, he raised his hand to strike me, but I didn't flinch. I stared him down. Do it. Go ahead. The security camera in this room is recording. Add assault to the list of charges. Your prison sentence will be that much longer. His hand stopped midair. He let it fall limply to his side. He knew he had lost, utterly and completely on his own turf. I zipped my suitcase and slung my handbag over my shoulder. Move. I don't want to breathe this contaminated air a second longer. He stepped back, making way for me. He stood there, a defeated man, watching his life walk out the door. I passed him without a single glance back. Downstairs in the living room, Susan and Megan were still there, silent and cowed. David was nowhere to be seen. Perhaps he was on the porch smoking, trying to swallow the bitter taste of betrayal. I walked out into the cool, damp night. The rain had nearly stopped. I loaded my luggage into my Mercedes, started the engine, and sped into the darkness. The headlights cutting a path away from that hell on earth. I didn't drive to my parents' empty townhouse. I couldn't face their portraits on the wall in the middle of the night. With them gone, I was truly alone, and the solitude of that large house would have crushed me. Instead, I drove to a 5-star hotel overlooking the East River in Manhattan, a place where I was a regular VIP guest. As I took the room key and sank into the plush bed, fragrant with the scent of lemongrass and chamomile, I finally allowed myself to cry. Not tears of weakness, but tears of release. I cried for the 5 years of my youth wasted on the wrong man, for the innocence that died tonight. And for the parents I missed so dearly. If they were alive, they would never have let their daughters suffer such an indignity. But I only gave myself 10 minutes. Then I dried my eyes, went into the marble bathroom, and let the hot water wash away the grime and the remnants of my past. Stepping out, I looked at my reflection in the mirror. My eyes were red and swollen, but my gaze was clearer and more determined than ever. Tomorrow the sun would rise and tomorrow the phoenix's hunt would officially begin. The next morning I woke early despite a nearly sleepless night. I chose a powerful yet elegant white pantsuit and applied my makeup meticulously to hide the dark circles under my eyes. I couldn't afford to look weak, especially not to my employees and the board. I called my lawyer, Arthur Miller. Arthur had been my father's best friend since college and was the most trusted legal counsel for the corporation. After my parents' sudden death, he had promised at their funeral that he would look after me. Hearing my voice, he knew instantly that something was wrong. "Grace, what is it, Arthur? I need to see you at your office now." His law firm occupied the top floor of a skyscraper in Midtown with a panoramic view of the city. Arthur, a man in his 60s with a full head of silver hair and sharp eyes behind his glasses, greeted me with a warm, fatherly hug. "What's happened, my dear? You sound terrible." I placed a USB drive containing the video evidence and a stack of bank statements on his polished mahogany desk. I told him everything that had happened, sparing no detail, including Michael's threats. As he listened, Arthur's face grew stern, his hand tightening on the arm of his chair. "That bastard. I always had my doubts about him, but I never imagined he was this audacious, this vile to betray you, and to plot to steal from you under your own roof. He must think because you're an orphan. You're an easy target." "I want to divorce Arthur as fast as possible," I said, my voice firm. "And I want him out of the company before he can do any more damage." Arthur nodded, examining the documents. "With this evidence, an uncontested divorce on grounds of fault is a certainty. The video is damning. The difficulty lies with the shared assets and his stock holdings. He has a point. If he dumps his shares or sells to a competitor, it could cause a catastrophic drop in stock value. So, what's our move?" I asked. "First," Arthur began, his tone all business, "I will file for an emergency injunction to freeze all assets registered under his name and all joint assets including the shares he controls. The legal grounds will be to secure assets pending the outcome of a fraud investigation and divorce settlement. Second, you need to convene an emergency board meeting to terminate his position as EVP. The ground's a severe breach of ethics that damages the corporation's reputation. It's in the company bylaws." "I'll do it immediately," I agreed. "But I'm worried he'll retaliate. He threatened to leak rumors to ruin my reputation." Arthur smiled reassuringly. "Let him. We have the truth on our side. But more importantly, we need a live witness to break the alliance between him and Megan. She knows where all his skeletons are buried. If we can get her to flip, Michael loses his most valuable accomplice. David, I said, you mean use David to pressure Megan? Exactly. Arthur confirmed. David is the primary victim here. His emotional state is incredibly fragile. If you handle this delicately, you can turn his pain into a weapon. I understood. David was a gentle soul, but even a gentle soul can be pushed too far. Megan's betrayal was a fatal blow to his pride. If I could show him the true depth of her contempt for him, he would sever all remaining ties, and he would be the only one who could force her to reveal where she was hiding the proof of Michael's financial crimes. I understand, I said, standing up and shaking his hand. Thank you, Arthur. I'll leave the legal front to you. The family front I'll handle myself. Be careful, Grace. A cornered dog is a dangerous one. I know, I replied with a confident smile. But I'm the one holding the leash. Leaving the law office, I called David. The phone rang for a long time before he answered. His voice was raw, like someone who hadn't slept or eaten in days. Hello, David. It's Grace. Where are you? I need to see you. It's important. It's about the assets Megan is holding in your name. I'm at the truck depot in Queens, he answered, his voice heavy. I can't go back to that house. Meet me at the Starlight Diner near there. It's quiet. I'll wait for you. 30 minutes later, David walked in. He looked 10 years older. His eyes were sunken and bloodshot, his face unshaven, his clothes wrinkled. He slumped into the booth opposite me. What is it, Grace? If it's about the house, the property, let them have it. I just want to divorce that cheating. His voice trailed off in despair. I reached across the table and placed my hand on his. David, you can't give up like that. That is your hard-earned money, your father's legacy. Why would you let those two vultures enjoy it at your expense? Do you want to know what Megan really thinks of you? He looked up, his eyes red-rimmed. What did she say? I took out my phone and played another recording, one I hadn't shown the previous night. It came from a micro-recorder I had planted in Megan's purse a month ago when my suspicions first began. In the recording, Megan's loud, laughing voice was clear as she spoke to a friend. My husband, God, he's so clueless. Smells like a gas station, works all the time, and comes home just to pass out like a pig. I'm so over it. Thank God for Michael. He's charming, he's rich, and he knows how to treat a woman. I'm getting David to sign over the deed to the lake house. Once that's done, I'm taking the money and I'm gone. He can have his stupid truck. As David listened, his face turned a dark shade of purple. His hand tightened around his coffee mug so hard I thought it would shatter. The cruel words from the woman he loved were more painful than any physical wound. She said that, he growled, a tear of pure rage rolling down his cheek. You see, I said, pressing my advantage. She didn't just betray you. She despises you. She sees you as nothing but a meal ticket. Are you going to let her get away with it? You need to fight back. You need to make her regret ever crossing you. What do I do? Tell me what to do, he pleaded, his eyes looking to me for direction. Go home to her, I instructed, laying out the plan. Tell her Michael has thrown her under the bus to save himself. Tell her Michael told the police that she was the mastermind, that she seduced him and forced him to forge the documents. Tell her Michael has already hired a lawyer to pin everything on her. Is that true? No, I said with a slight cold smile. But she'll believe it. Megan is greedy, but she's a coward. She's terrified right now. If she thinks Michael has abandoned her, she'll turn on him to save herself. Then you tell her the only way to get a lighter sentence is to turn over all the evidence she has against him. I know she has a burner phone where she and Michael communicated and where he stored records of his illegal activities. David was silent for a moment, then nodded, his jaw set. The gentleman was gone, replaced by a warrior fueled by hatred. Okay, I'll do it. I'll make that pay. Remember to act the part, I coached him. Look heartbroken, but also worried for her. Tell her you want to save her from Michael's trap. Fear is your best weapon. He stood up, drained his coffee, and walked out. I watched him go, knowing I had just activated the most important piece on the chessboard. The unholy alliance of Michael and Megan was about to crumble. David returned to the house that afternoon. Megan was in her room, her eyes swollen from crying. When she saw him, she flinched, expecting another beating. But David didn't raise his voice. He sat down heavily, his face a mask of sorrow and anxiety. Megan, you need to pack your things, she gasped. You're kicking me out, David. I'm sorry. I made a mistake. It's not me, he said, his voice flat, his performance flawless. The police are coming for you. I just met with Grace and her lawyer. Michael flipped. He told them everything. He's saying you drugged him, that you forced him to sign everything to embezzle the money. He's claiming you were the mastermind. Megan's face went white. What? No, he wouldn't. He's an EVP of a major corporation, Megan. He has money and power. He's not going to take the fall for you. He told them you were a desperate, greedy woman who acted rashly. The lawyer said, with these charges, you're looking at serious prison time. Megan burst into tears, a mixture of terror and fury. She couldn't believe the man who had promised her a life in Europe was now sending her to prison. That monster, that liar. I hate him, she screamed. David moved closer, his voice softening with fake sympathy. Look, there's only one way out of this. You have to give them evidence that he was the mastermind. Do you have anything on him? Anything at all? Give it to me. I'll take it to the lawyer. Maybe they can cut you a deal. In her panic, Megan clung to him like a lifeline. Yes, I do. I have the old phone he used for his dirty deals. It has everything. I hid it. He doesn't know I have it. Where is it? Get it now before they get here, David urged. Frantically, Megan ran to her closet, pulled out an old shoebox, and from under the sole of a worn-out high heel, she produced an old powered-down iPhone. It's all in here, she sobbed, handing it to him. Texts, recordings of him ordering the accountants to cook the books, everything. He gave it to me as his insurance. David took the phone, his heart pounding, but his face grim. Okay, you stay here. Don't go anywhere. I'm going to see the lawyer. He walked out of the house and immediately called me. Grace, I got it. I have the phone. I was in my office and the news was like a bolt of electricity. Fantastic, David. Bring it to Arthur's office right now. This time, Michael has nowhere to run. With that phone, combined with the evidence I already had, Michael wasn't just facing termination. He was facing a long, hard prison sentence. My plan had worked perfectly. His downfall was now just a matter of time. That afternoon, Arthur and I powered on the phone. It was a treasure trove. Encrypted chats, call recordings of Michael directing fund transfers to shell companies, photos of falsified contracts. It laid bare a sophisticated system of corruption he had built over 2 years right under my nose. This is it, Arthur said, adjusting his glasses. With this, the district attorney's office will launch a full-scale white-collar crime investigation. He's not just going down for fraud and adultery, but for corporate embezzlement, tax evasion, and money laundering. I stared at the phone screen, my heart cold. You were too ambitious, Michael, and you chose the wrong person to cross. You thought I was a pampered house cat, but you forgot that even cats have claws, and when cornered, they become tigers. Tomorrow, at the headquarters of Hayes Legacy Corp., I would deliver the final blow. The purge was about to begin. The next morning, I strode into the grand lobby of the Hayes Legacy Corporation Tower with more confidence than I had ever felt. I wore a tailored black dress that screamed power, my hair pulled back in a severe elegant bun. Behind me were Arthur Miller, four imposing security guards, and a representative from a top international auditing firm I had secretly engaged last week. Employees in the lobby stopped and whispered. They were used to seeing a softer Grace, the woman who stood quietly behind her husband, not the imperious chairwoman who walked before them. Now. I went straight to the main conference room where Michael was leading the weekly executive meeting. The doors swung open with a resounding bang. Everyone inside, including all the senior executives, turned in shock. Michael, standing at the head of the table, went pale when he saw me. Grace, what is the meaning of this? This is a private meeting. You have no business being here. No business? I cut him off, my voice echoing through the silent room. I am the majority shareholder and the chairwoman of this board. You, Michael, are the one who no longer has any business here. I walked to the head of the table, signaling for my guards to block Michael's path. He tried to move toward me, but was stopped by a wall of muscle. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, I announced, my gaze sweeping over their stunned faces. I am here today to make an emergency announcement. As of this moment, I am officially terminating the employment of Mr. Michael Hayes as Executive Vice President. A wave of gasps and murmurs filled the room. A few executives, known cronies of Michael, stood up to object. Miss Hayes, you can't do that. Mr. Hayes's leadership has been exemplary. On what grounds? On these grounds, I said, throwing a thick binder of documents onto the table. It contained the auditor's preliminary report and evidence of his embezzlement. Mr. Hayes has been systematically defrauding this company, using his position to siphon millions into shell corporations, causing catastrophic losses to this corporation and its shareholders. My lawyer has already filed a report with the district attorney's office, and a court has issued an order to freeze all of Mr. Hayes's assets pending investigation. His continued presence here is a liability. We cannot afford. Michael's face was slick with sweat. He knew it was all true. Lies. It's all lies, he shrieked. She's making it up to seize control of the company. Whether it's lies or not is for the authorities to decide, I replied coldly. Security. Remove him from the premises. 2 large security guards entered, grabbed Michael by the arms, and began dragging him out. He struggled and screamed curses at me, but his voice was cut off as the heavy doors closed behind him. The room was utterly silent. The executives who had just defended him were now staring at their hands, avoiding my eyes. They knew the regime had changed. I took my rightful seat at the head of the table. We will now continue the meeting. From this day forward, I will be taking direct operational control of this company. And let me be clear, anyone here who was complicit in Mr. Hayes's activities would be well advised to tender their resignation before I am forced to take further action. My message was clear and brutal. It crushed any net thoughts of rebellion. The road ahead would be difficult, but I had finally cleaned house. 3 days after being fired, Michael fought back. Not through legal channels. He knew that was a losing battle, but with the dirtiest weapon of the modern age, social media. My phone began ringing off the hook. Grace, you need to get online now, my assistant urged, her voice panicked. I opened my laptop. A video was going viral, shared millions of times. It showed Michael's parents, Susan, and his father, sitting on the curb outside my Greenwich estate, weeping hysterically. They told a sob story of a cruel, power-hungry daughter-in-law who had thrown her loving husband out, stolen his rightful share of the company, and for the final vicious twist. They claimed I was mentally unstable, suffering from paranoid schizophrenia, and had been physically abusive. She's crazy. Susan wailed to the camera. She has these fits, smashing things, hitting my poor Michael. We put up with it for years out of love for our son, and now she's thrown us all out on the street. It was a masterful performance. Below the video, thousands of comments poured in vilifying me. What a monster. Classic gold digger turned psycho. Boycott Hayes Legacy Corp. A CEO with no morals. The company's stock plummeted at the opening bell. Business partners called, threatening to pull out of deals. The weight of public opinion was crushing. The fact that I had no parents or extended family to speak up for me only made their story more believable. I was painted as a lonely, tyrannical Aries. I sat in my office scrolling through the hateful comments. Strangely, I felt no anger, no fear, only a grim amusement. Michael was so desperate he was using his own parents as actors in this pathetic sideshow. "Grace, what do we do?" my assistant asked. "Should we hold a press conference?" "No," I said firmly. "Let them perform. The bigger the spectacle, the harder the fall. We will remain silent and let the mob reveal its true nature. When the truth comes out, the backlash will be the final nail in Michael's coffin." I called Arthur. "Do you have the fake medical records Michael had a doctor create for me?" "I do," he confirmed. "And I've located the doctor. He took a hefty bribe from Michael and is now terrified of being exposed." "Good. Keep him on ice as our star witness. And Arthur, contact the major news networks. Tell them to prepare for a media bombshell tomorrow." I hung up and looked out the window. The city skyline was gray, but I knew the sun would break through. Michael wanted to play a game of public manipulation. I was about to teach him a master class. That night, I stayed at the hotel. Around 11 p.m., my doorbell rang. "Who is it?" I called out cautiously. "Room service, ma'am. A bottle of wine was sent up for you." I frowned. I hadn't ordered anything. A prickle of unease ran down my spine. I crept to the door and looked through the peephole. A man in a room service uniform stood there, a cap pulled low over his face, but his posture, the nervous tapping of his foot, it was Michael. I backed away, grabbing my phone with one hand and a fruit knife from the welcome basket with the other. I dialed hotel security. "Open the door, Grace. I know you're in there." His voice was slurred with alcohol. He started pounding on the door. "Go away. I've called security." I yelled back. "Open up or I'll kill you. You ruined my life, you took everything." He screamed, throwing his shoulder against the heavy door. It shuddered in its frame. For the first time, I felt real fear. The deadbolt held, but the security chain strained. He shoved his hand through the gap, trying to rip it from the wall. His eyes, visible through the crack, were wild and bloodshot. "You're dead." Just then, four hotel security guards rounded the corner. They tackled him, wrestling him to the ground as he thrashed and cursed. The NYPD arrived moments later and put him in handcuffs. I stood inside the room, shaking, the knife still clutched in my hand. He had just handed me the final piece of evidence I needed. The hotel security footage of a drunk, violent Michael being arrested was undeniable. The next morning, I held a massive press conference in the company's auditorium. I walked onto the stage, calm and composed. For the past few days, I began, my voice clear and steady. There have been many false and malicious rumors circulating about my personal life. Today, I am here to present the truth. The huge LED screen behind me lit up. First, bank statements showing the $50,000 monthly allowance I provided for my in-laws totaling over $500,000 over 5 years. Does this look like the actions of an ungrateful daughter-in-law? Next, the hotel security footage from the previous night played, showing Michael's violent attack. The room gasped. But the real reason for our marital breakdown, I continued, was not my alleged mental instability. It was my husband's infidelity. The video of Michael and Megan in the cafe played. But my sister-in-law was not his only affair. She too was a victim, manipulated by Michael and his plot to steal her husband's assets. The woman he was truly spending his time and this company's money on was this one. A new set of photos appeared on screen. Michael with a well-known young influencer named Jessica embracing her in the lobby of a luxury condo building. He purchased this $1 million apartment for Miss Jessica using funds embezzled from Hayes Legacy Corp. The room erupted. The media narrative flipped in an instant. The tide of public opinion turned into a tsunami of rage directed at Michael and his family. He was being held by the police for the assault. And when he saw the press conference on the station's TV, he slumped over, defeated. He had lost everything. But for me, this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of the sentence he would serve in the court of public opinion for the rest of his life. After the shocking press conference, Michael was released on bail, but the court's asset freeze was absolute. He was penniless, his car seized, the condo sealed. A man like Michael, cornered and broke, would become reckless. He needed cash to flee or bribe his way out of trouble. I knew he had a secret safe in his old office containing a backup corporate SIL and a hardware wallet with illicit cryptocurrency. I set one last trap. I intentionally let it slip to his former assistant, who I knew was still loyal to him, that the security system on the 15th floor was down for maintenance. That night, as another storm rolled in, I sat in the security control room with the head of security and two plainclothes detectives. On the monitor, a figure in a black raincoat slipped through a ventilation window. It was Michael. He moved stealthily, avoiding the main cameras, unaware of the new micro cameras I'd had installed. He found the spare key card I'd left for him and made his way to his old office. He opened the hidden safe behind a painting and greedily stuffed the contents into a backpack. Just as he turned to leave, the lights flashed on. NYPD, freeze. The detectives swarmed him. The backpack fell, its contents spilling across the floor. I stepped into the room. "Hello, Michael. Did you really think you could steal from me again?" He looked from me to the officers and his face contorted. Then, in a horrifying display, he screamed, collapsed to the floor, and began convulsing violently, his mouth foaming. "Ghosts, they're coming for me. Help!" he shrieked, slamming his head against a desk leg. The officers hesitated. I watched the pathetic performance with cold detachment. But I was wrong. This wasn't just an act. It was a premeditated strategy. The next day, Michael's lawyer appeared at the police station with a psychiatrist. A Dr. Evans. "My client is not criminally responsible," the lawyer announced. "He has a diagnosed mental illness." Dr. Evans presented a thick medical file, perfectly forged, detailing a 6-month history of bipolar disorder with psychotic features. His recent actions, the doctor explained coolly, are a manifestation of a severe psychotic break. He has no control over his behavior. Under the law, a person deemed legally insane cannot be held criminally responsible. I saw Michael in the interrogation room drooling and muttering to himself. But for a split second, his eyes met mine, and I saw a flash of a triumphant demonic smirk. He had a get-out-of-jail-free card. The district attorney was forced to suspend the criminal case pending a full psychiatric evaluation. Michael was released into his family's custody for treatment. 2 weeks later, I received a notice for an emergency board meeting called by Michael's parents as his legal guardians. At the meeting, Dr. Evans stood up. In treating Mr. Hayes, he announced gravely, "I've discovered the root cause of his illness, the severe psychological abuse inflicted by his wife. Based on my observations of Miss President Hayes, I suspect she suffers from paranoid schizophrenia." Susan stood up, weeping on cue. "It's true. She always thought we were poisoning her food. She's the crazy one." My supporters on the board looked at me with doubt. They were turning my own strategy against me, painting me as the unstable one. If I fought back, they would claim I was having an episode. Since I had no living parents, my not yet divorced husband or his guardians could legally be granted control over my affairs if I were declared mentally incompetent. I was trapped. So, I made a desperate, daring choice. If they wanted me to be crazy, I would give them the performance of a lifetime. I screamed, clutched my head, and collapsed to the floor. "Get away from me. You're devils." I sobbed, my body shaking. It was a mirror image of Michael's act, but perfected. "You see, she's having a breakdown," Susan shouted victoriously. "Take her to my hospital," Dr. Evans commanded. 2 orderlies, clearly hired thugs, restrained me. I went limp, pretending to faint as they carried me out. The ambulance didn't go to a city hospital, but to a secluded, high-security mansion in upstate New York, Dr. Evans's private asylum for the wealthy to dispose of inconvenient relatives. I was locked in a room with barred windows. Every day, Dr. Evans would bring me a handful of pills. I pretended to swallow them, but secretly hid them under my tongue and forced myself to vomit them up later. I knew they were powerful antipsychotics designed to turn me into a docile vegetable. For weeks, I played the part of a mad woman, talking to walls, weeping, and staring into space, all while secretly planning my escape. Help came in the form of a new cleaning lady, a mute woman named Maria. She was our family's old housekeeper, tracked down and planted here by Arthur. She slipped me a note. "Help is coming. We have found another victim of Evans. We are building a case. Hold on for 10 more days." She also slipped me a tiny button-sized camera. The day before the annual shareholders' meeting, Michael visited me. He looked smug and prosperous. "Hello, darling," he sneered. "I know you're not really crazy, but it doesn't matter. Tomorrow, I'll be appointed your legal guardian, and I'll have you transferred to a permanent facility overseas. You were smart, Grace, but you were too trusting. I was always 10 steps ahead." He laughed, detailing his entire scheme, from faking his illness to bribing the doctor. Every word, every arrogant confession was captured by the hidden camera. The next day, I was escorted to the shareholders' meeting. I looked pale and broken. The hall was filled with investors and press, all there to witness the official transfer of power. Michael stood at the podium, a document in his hand. "As my wife is unwell," he announced, "I will be signing this transfer of authority on her behalf." He placed the pen in my trembling hand. The camera zoomed in. Just as the nib touched the paper, I stopped. I slowly raised my head, pushed my hair out of my face, and the vacant look in my eyes was replaced by a blaze of cold fire. I stood up, grabbing the microphone. "And who gave you that authority?" I asked, my voice ringing out, clear and strong. The entire hall gasped. Michael froze, his face a mask of disbelief. "Surprised?" I smiled. "Did you really think your drugs and your prison could break me?" I signaled the tech booth. The giant screen lit up with the video from my room. Michael's full, boastful confession. The room exploded. As his own damning words echoed through the hall, plain detectives emerged from the wings and slapped handcuffs on a stunned Michael and a terrified Dr. Evans. The Phoenix Reborn trial became a national sensation. Michael was sentenced to 18 years in federal prison for a litany of crimes. Dr. Evans received 10 years and lost his medical license. Susan and her husband were evicted and returned to their hometown in disgrace. Megan received 3 years probation, forced to pay back every cent. David, with my help, started his own small trucking company and focused on raising his child, having cut all ties with his ex-wife. As for me, I returned to my position as chairwoman. Stronger and more respected than ever, I purged the company of cronies and led it into an era of unprecedented growth and success. 6 months later, I stood backstage at the National Women's Leadership Forum, the keynote speaker. Looking in the mirror, I saw a new woman. The scars were there, but they had forged me into someone unbreakable. I told my story not as a victim, but as a survivor, and announced the launch of the Phoenix Foundation, a charity funded with the entirety of my legal settlement dedicated to helping women escape abusive situations. At the reception afterward, a man approached me. It was Daniel, the young CEO of a tech company who had helped me secure the digital evidence against Michael. "That was an incredible speech, Grace," he said, his eyes filled with genuine admiration, not the calculated avarice I had once known. "I've always admired your strength." "Thank you, Daniel. I couldn't have done it without your help. May I have this dance?" he asked, extending a hand. I looked down at my own hand. The faint indentation where my wedding ring used to be was finally gone. I smiled, a real warm smile, and placed my hand in his. As we stepped onto the dance floor, I knew my future was no longer a story written by others. The storm was over. The ashes had scattered.